At Byfield. My business is the Phenomenal STEMist. I'm so excited to be here in Orange County because it's where I live. I live in Apopka, Florida. And I decided to make this business because I saw a need for underrepresented students to be successful in STEM, which stands for science, technology, engineering, math. And the best way I can do that is just provide products for parents to prepare them, whether it's a book or online STEM camps or just video podcasting. My goal is to transform this community, especially those who are underrepresented. And the way to do that is to help parents understand their children's minds and basically develop them at different stages of their lives to be prepared for a successful STEM career. Thank you so much. That's why I'm here. Hello, hello, hello.
Hi
Good.
there.
Hey, good evening, everybody. I see people starting to come in. It's the phenomenal STEMist. Good evening. Come on in, guys. Come on in. And of course, you gotta greet us. You gotta greet us. I wonder who's watching. As we, I see people piling in, piling in. Emergency medicine is a hot topic. I hope. I want to thank you all for joining. I want to greet everybody. The first person is, of course, the number one fan. Her name is Pat Byfield. Hey, mommy.
Hi, Pat.
Hey, I am with my mother's first cousin, my cousin, Dr. Samuel Wilson. Before I get into talking about that, I want to encourage you guys, please like and subscribe to Phenomenal STEMist. And of course, the book is on Amazon, The Phenomenal STEMist, how to become or how to prepare a student, a successful STEM student from the womb to the university. Get on it on Amazon. And of course, please like and subscribe to Dr. Maya Byfield on YouTube. Hey, cuz, how are you?
Fine, fine, fine. So
Yeah.
good to be with you and so admiring of what you're doing.
Yeah, yeah. Just give a nice smile. That's my we have you see that little gap teeth right there? See it? We're related. We're related.
Yes, that's right. That's,
We're
that's a
related.
read trait.
That's a read trait. That's a read trait. Listen,
Yeah.
this is Dr. Samuel Wilson. He is a physician. He is a physician. He received his degrees from Loma Linda University, both pre-medical and medical. He graduated, he always says, a long time ago. He specializes. He did his internship and residency in emergency medicine. He's currently a practicing physician, and we'll get a little bit in detail as to what he's actually doing now. But just greet the people, Uncle Sam.
Hello out there, STEMists one and all. So good to be talking with you. Share my journey.
Absolutely, really, really appreciate it. I think it's so important for um, people of color to share their journeys. Not a lot of people see physicians that look like themselves, and it's just a joy that you took the time to come out and just share your story with us. We're gonna jump right into it. And the first question have for you is, when did you fall in love with your discipline? When did you fall in love with your discipline?
So there are two answers to that question. I fell in love with medicine. It's truer to say I fell in love with a man, a doctor, a person who was highly thought of in our community. I didn't know him. I didn't know him. I didn't see him ever for 10 years. Uh, but I had made my decision just by hearing about him. And what I heard What I knew was that he had created a scholarship to put kids through school, put his kids through high school and kids through college. If you had good grades, he would take the money out of his pocket and would put you through high school in the church school that I went to, which was Kingsway in Kingston.
Jamaica.
I should tell you the name of that man. It's Dr. Lloyd Days. He's a neurosurgeon, a brain surgeon, and he's close to 90 now. He's retired for quite a while, but he's still alive. But he was the person I fell in love with. I wanted to be, I wanted people to talk. I want my legacy to be like him. That is what I thought. I wanted people to talk about me like they talked about him. And so I decided on medicine. I
Wow.
began to trap lizards and birds and do surgery because I thought that was what he was doing. Nobody survived. Nobody survived. Survived. Nobody
Nobody
survived.
survived. It's a,
Nobody
I wonder
survived.
you still did it after killing
Yeah.
all those.
But that's how I became interested in medicine. But emergency medicine. So emergency medicine. I fell in love with emergency medicine because of my rotation at Martin Luther King in Los Angeles. There's a county hospital that had an emergency medicine program. That hospital does not exist as a county hospital in the form it was when I went there. But I fell in love with emergency medicine because I was needed. I felt
Mhm.
important. The place was so busy. It was packed with people standing in on gurneys, crying. The first night I got there, this was in the 1980s when the crack cocaine epidemic was just blasting, and
Yeah.
people tried to protect their sales turf. There was so much money to be made, so much of the drug coming in. There's a lot that goes behind that story. People should look at it. There are movies that have been made about this. But anyway, there was there's a free channel from South America, cocaine into Los Angeles, and it was crack cocaine. And people were trying to protect their sales turf through violence.
Yeah.
And so it was a busy place, a lot of
Uncle
trauma, a
Sam.
lot of violence.
Sorry, Dr. Wilson. I did not realize you were working in LA in emergency medicine during the crack epidemic. It
Yes,
just
it
when you
was.
said it, when you said you did a rotation in LA County, and I know when you and I said, wait a minute, he graduated in 84. That means he was in the I said it in my mind. I said it in
Yeah,
mind. You
yeah,
were in the height of the crack. Oh my good, that you must have stories.
yes. This was Martin Luther King. This LA County was a different hospital. They had like about 5 county hospitals in Los Angeles at the time. And yeah. So Martin Luther King, South Central LA, straight out of Compton.
You did that.
It was
You were that
busy.
doctor. You were that doctor in the movie. In all those movies, you were that doctor. Oh my
Uh, so I was a kid. Imagine. Okay, so how did I get to Martin Luther King? Martin Luther King was not inside the Loma Linda system. It was a separate hospital. But I was inside the Loma Linda system, and I was at the White Memorial Hospital doing a surgical rotation there, and I was very dissatisfied. I was dissatisfied because they weren't letting me do anything. I was just standing behind the residents and running to get labs, and it was just I wasn't doing anything. I considered it a real waste of time and said so. And so my attendings, and I had good relationships with my attendings. I said, "So what do you want to do? You're so pissed off, and what do you want?" I said, "I want to sew. At least I could sew somebody up." And they said, "You want to sew people up? Okay, here's where you go." They sent me
God.
to okay. So I mean, I was on the phone, and I got a rotation within 30 days. The first night I got there was this guy who had been filleted. They cut his back just over and crossed him up. Cut, 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 cut. And the resident says, "Can you sew?" I was just like, "Yeah." And he says, okay, here's a tray. Take care of this guy. As I recall, I spent almost 8 hours sewing this one guy up. And at the end of that, I was like, will they pay me to do this?
They'll pay
I
me.
was
I'm
no
gonna pay
longer,
you to get it.
I was no longer interested in neurosurgery or surgery. I was just like, this is it. If I get paid, I would do this for free.
Wow, this is a powerful story. So you fell in love with somebody who gave back. Somebody who gave back. So that's why it's so important to give back. You came back to give, and you said, "I'm gonna be like this man." But this man was a neurosurgeon. So in your mind, you were gonna be like him. You were gonna go into surgery.
Right.
But here's you adapted to who you were. It's like at one point you had a role model, but then you looked at what you were called to do, and they weren't using you enough. And so you step outside of your box into a more dangerous territory. I mean, the height of the crack epidemic, where drug dealers are killing each other left, right, and center. And you got an opportunity that we probably wouldn't have gotten in the other rotation. And you took it and ran with it.
Emergency medicine is distinct because all the different branches of medicine will end up there, from
Mm.
psych to OBGYN, pediatrics, cardiology, advanced cancers. Everything will somehow end up in the emergency room. And so it was, for a youngster, it was very exciting. I was just like, oh, let me at it. And they were like, go. It was,
Wow. And you
and
did.
so it was adrenaline filled, and it was for me.
Wow, wow. Okay. So you had to be successful, and to be a physician takes a lot of discipline. What tools did you use to discipline yourself to succeed? Like in, let's say, in college, in medical school, wherever.
Well, see, I had decided to go to be a doctor, and I knew I had to have good grades. But I was the kind of student who, if I was interested in a topic, I wouldn't even stop with the books that teachers outlined and the homework that they gave. I would go out to the bookstores and buy my own books, and that started at about 11th grade. Um, I discovered the trick of waking up at 2 o'clock in the morning. I would set the alarm clock at 2, and this was an alarm clock that was in my room. It was out in the dining room, and our bedrooms were kind of around that. So as soon as went off, I had to jump up to turn it off before everybody else got mad. So I'd be out of bed, and I began. So if you want to talk about, I'll talk about. So that was one trick: getting up early.
Mhm. Yep. Early in the morning versus trying to study all the way late. Wait, go to bed
Yeah,
early in the morning. Yep. I did
early
that.
in the morning. And part of the reason, it's quite interesting because the school that I went to had some problems. A lot of the teachers, or some of the teachers, especially in the science, were foreign, Chinese even. And so, but but they were foreigners, and they would sometimes take off. They would have their agendas, different things. So there were some problems there that made me feel that I had to actually be responsible myself.
Myself. Yeah.
I had to be responsible. So from 11th grade, I began to teach myself. I didn't wait. The teachers were great in terms of giving me a kind of direction, but then I went out and got my own books, and I would study, and I would actually rewrite the books that I had read. I had notebooks and notebooks of my own books that I had written, with mnemonics and different ways of actually remembering stuff. The second thing that really impacted me as a studier, actually happened during residency, and it was the development of the Walkman and audio tapes. And something interesting happened to me in residency. I began to moonlight, began to make money for the first time, and I took that very seriously. And so to keep up, I began to buy these audio tapes so that I was always listening. I would listen in my sleep. I, I had an interesting experience where I took a test and I looked at the multiple choice answers. I consciously didn't know them, some of them, but I knew them. It was the strangest thing. And it turns out that my answers were right. It appears to me that I had actually absorbed information subconsciously.
Subconsciously. Wow. Yep.
So listening to audio tapes was the next big thing. If you take responsibility for getting, if you know the information that's needed, if you know the curriculum, and you take the responsibility to get the books and take the responsibility to get the information yourself, it's far superior. Your breadth of understanding is wider than if you're just going by what teachers teach you.
So important. And I tell my students this all the time. I've actually transitioned my teaching for one of my classes to hybrid where they can watch my my videos, PowerPoints online. And I teach them how to teach themselves. I got to
Yeah.
the place where I said, I'm doing you a disservice. I'm doing you a disservice spoon feeding you. But I can't just teach it without spoon feeding you.
Yeah.
I have to decide to say, okay, I'm not going to spoon feed them, but I'm going to teach them how to teach themselves. It's so critical. And it's like the way technology is advanced past your time. When I was in school, we were just developing animations. There weren't animations in your day, and there weren't animations really in mine. It's like towards the end of my college career, they started doing animations, and I'm telling my students now, these textbooks have videos and podcasts and animation. They have all kinds of resources. You gotta use
Yes.
them.
Yes.
Use
If
those
if you
resources.
if you're depending on a teacher to teach you, you're at a real disadvantage.
Yeah, yeah,
Real
yeah. And
disadvantage.
it feels like it's like, "Oh, I'm paying you to teach me." That's what we're
Um,
thinking.
no, it's not. It's not your teacher's problem. It's not your teacher's problem. Just like I tell my patients, your diabetes is not my problem. That's your problem. You better get smart.
Wow.
Better get smart. So here's another. I was telling you that I started to moonlight. It turned out that there were lots of needs. So emergency medicine was a brand new field at the time, and there were lots of people working as ER doctors who actually didn't have any training. So a young guy who's had 1 year of emergency medicine training had a lot of skills that were unknown to the family doctors who were like they would work their clinics, and then on a weekend they would go into the emergency room, and so here you have a dermatologist or a psychiatrist or somebody like that will come into the emergency room and will run into a 3-year-old who's been hit by a boat
Oh my lord.
and is unconscious, unresponsive. There's nothing in his
Background.
yeah, that would prepare him for that. I mean, that's just a dead individual. Bad luck. Um, so it turns out that the opportunities, the people who would work with my schedule best were rural emergency hospitals. If you can believe this, they would send a plane out to a small community airfield in Los Angeles, right behind the hospital in Compton. In fact, that airstrip is still there. Pick me up on Friday. I would fly out
Wow.
and I would work through the weekend and come back in on Monday morning.
You were moonlighting.
I was moonlighting, and
Uncle Sam had a side hustle, y'all.
not a joke. Uh, um, I I didn't have anybody to turn to when I was out there. As a matter of fact, on multiple occasions, if a patient was having trouble in the ICU, it would be me that would be going down there as a consultant. They would call me up. They didn't have anybody. The doctor, the family doctor who had it, would be like, "You need to go see what this guy needs to be intubated. You go in and put a tube in him." The
But you were a
anesthesia.
resident. You were a resident. You weren't
wasn't
finished training.
I wasn't. I hadn't finished training yet, but I
Ah,
was out there by myself. But it I had to find a way to learn on the job. And I had seen a lot in my first year because of where I was. Uh, if you ask me what my proudest moment was during that time, I remember a Sunday evening. Um, a 3, 4-year-old girl was struck by her father. Can you imagine? The parents put the child on a inflatable, and apparently the current
mhm.
took her out into the boating traffic, and it was her own father that hit her at high speed and broke multiple ribs, filled up her lungs with blood, and the paramedics brought her in on. But I had seen enough that I knew, with one glance at her, I knew everything that was needed. I stuck a tube into her chest, bunch of blood just dumped out into the bag, and then had to give her blood right away. And as soon as she started getting blood, she woke up. Her father was kneeling on the ground crying,
Wow.
and she woke up and said, "Daddy," and he. Of course, I had to send him. I had to fly him out to a trauma hospital. But that experience. That experience of saving that kid's life just lit my imagination. I knew for a fact that this is what I was born
Sounds
to
good.
do.
Yeah.
This is what I was born to do, and it was
And it's because you put yourself in a very hostile environment to see that. You've seen it before.
yes, I'd seen it before. I'd seen,
Yeah.
MLK was a place, a hospital where gang members would actually run into the emergency room and finish off a hit, with the doctors running underneath the tables and all that. I mean, it was a hot environment. Hot environment. They would finish the guy right there. They would come in with their guns. The doctors would scramble and they'd kill him right there.
Whoa.
Yeah. So,
Uncle Sam, I should really, I need to just come to California and just sit on your couch and just listen to some stories. This is the first time I'm hearing these stories.
yeah. And I didn't see everything. There are guys who have hotter stories than that.
Yeah.
Yeah. My wife was actually witness to that. She saw that because she was doing her one of the externships there, and she was witness to that. See the young resident physician, a lady, ducking under the gurney to get away from those guys.
Wow, wow. Shout out to Arlene Wilson. She's also a physician. His wife. Okay, okay, okay. Ooh, these are amazing stories. All right, so the tools I'm hearing wake up early in the morning. I'm
For sure.
hearing do what you need to do to teach yourself. Learn beyond what the professor is asking of you. I'm hearing use resources, technological resources that are advanced to literally place things in your subconscious. Man, listen, you guys are list watching. These are some tools. These are some tools here.
Yeah.
And then I'm hearing put yourself in position to learn on the job. Woo!
Do
All right.
something. Do something difficult. But you know what? I was so pumped with adrenaline. The idea that what I was doing was difficult did not even cross my mind. It was the most exciting thing I could have done.
Yeah, because you loved it. You were excited. You wanted
Yeah.
to do. Yeah, yeah. All right. So what were some challenges in school? Can you give me some examples of challenges that you had in college, in med school?
My worst enemy was myself, actually. If I was not excited by a subject, I wouldn't take my high energy strategy to that. And what was even worse is that I didn't even recognize that this is what was happening. Um, I was the kind of person who could study a first test, the last few nights, not understanding that that's not the same kind of learning.
Mm-hmm.
It's completely different. It's and life doesn't allow you to do something like that. When you run into a medical problem for your patient, especially if it's an emergency, well, you might be able to wing it, but it is better to have studied a long time and have a deep understanding of what issues are. Because
Yeah.
very often, so here's the thing: left to yourself, you might even figure out the answer. But a lot of the times, you have other voices, people trying to tell you what to do. You have other people, like, hey, should we do this? Should we do that? And that sort of stuff. So, emergency medicine is one of those fields where you're being bombarded. You need to be sure. And you need to
Mm-hmm.
block out voices. You need to tell people to shut it down. I want it quiet in this room now. And
Mm-hmm.
then, allow yourself to think, to pull in what you do know. So going back to your question,
Mm-hmm.
I needed a better understanding. I was so confident that I could do well that very often I didn't do as well as I could.
Mm-hmm. Got it. I've seen
Yeah.
it.
One of my favorite motivational speakers is the hip hop preacher. His name is
E.T. Eric Thomas,
E.T. E.T.
my
Love that
favorite
man.
too.
Love that
Shout out
man.
to UOU if you're watching.
So
Give us a plug. So
don't depend on just talent. Don't just talent. You got to work. And in fact, you could be a stupid guy who will outshine. And this has happened. This happened to me all the time because you could be a stupid guy who will outscore the most talented people because you work.
yeah,
You work. You have to understand. You need to outword. You need to be faster than the lion.
yeah. Gazelle. You
As
can't
we
be a
said.
gazelle.
Yeah. Well, just know that if you're working, you might live another day.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
you
Oh
might
yeah,
get
yeah. The
there
gazelle,
quick.
the gazelle can outrun the lion. That's right.
Sure. Sure. You need to be able to put the work in. Don't depend on talent. Smartness doesn't mean anything. It's useless. You need to be disciplined. You need to put in the work. Figure it out.
I tell my students all the time, my mantra is biology is not for the smart, it's for the prepared. Prepare yourself because they think, oh, I'm not as smart and that's why I didn't do well on the test. Listen, you can do it. And so what you're saying is so pivotal. I see it a lot in young men a lot of the times. They oh, I got this. I got this. And they don't take it seriously,
No, no, you don't.
especially
No, you
when
don't.
they don't like it. But you gotta excel. A lot of the times they're looking for excellence and diligence. That's what they're looking for.
Diligence,
And so
diligence,
your
persist.
challenges, yeah, your challenges were it was your own. You were your own worst enemy in not putting your whole self in things that even you did not like. That's a powerful statement, and I hope the young people are listening. So tell me what you do now, and basically tell me what the challenges are.
Um, since 2019, I have stopped working in emergency rooms. What happened was the emergency business has been taken over by corporate entities who now hire the doctors and have relationships with the hospitals. When I started, or when I had been in the business for about 5 years, I was offered a contract to hire doctors and to provide 24/7, 365 care at a community hospital in Barstow, near where I lived. And I did that for 15 years. 15 years. If there wasn't a doctor that was there to work it, I would work it. And it was my contract. My contract. Me and a partner, my good friend, Dr. Nader Abbas. Both of us, we were offered that. And but now the hospitals, and very often these are multi-chain hospitals, they will hire uh, um, a contracting group that will provide them not only emergency doctors, anesthesiologists, pathologists, the radiologists. So they go to one source, one contract, and that kind of scale allows the hospital to actually save money because they're going to one source.
Yeah.
And so what happens then is that you become commoditized. Imagine that you have a brand new set of doctors coming out every year, smart as heck,
Yeah.
cheaper.
Yeah. Yeah.
In any case, so we saw this happening. Actually, it started happening at the beginning when I started, and there was a book about it, and at that time, the independent doctors like myself had the advantage. They did not. The corporate entities did not have the advantage, but they slowly built. Very, very slick,
Okay.
very capable, and funded.
Funded by the
Anyway,
insurance companies? Who are they funded by? Who would you say they're funded
um, by Wall Street, the
by? Wall
stock.
Street.
They're,
Wow. Oh, it's
they're
corporate. Corporate.
publicly traded.
Wow.
They're big, and they have a lot of clout. If you come in and say, "Listen, I'll work for nothing," the hospital probably still won't want you because they've got their to get their radiologist in, their anesthesiologist. They call it the peer group. Actually, they call it the RATE group because it's radiologist, anesthesiologist, pathology, and emergency.
Bad name. Bad name.
But basically, they're hospital-based doctors. Hospital-based doctors. So they get to negotiate with one entity and get all the hospital-based doctors that they want. And it's kind of like if you were a landlord and you had to hire. I mean, if you had to actually have 100 tenants, or you had to have one tenant. It's so much easier to have to deal with one person than to have to deal with a group of different entities, all separate with their own little quirks and things that they want, and that sort of thing. It's much easier for the hospitals to do. In any case, saw that coming and decided that we did not like the commoditization because if they asked you to do something that you thought, this isn't in line with my values, okay?
Yeah.
Um, I'm even wondering whether I should say these things, but they would be like, you can evaluate a patient, but if it's not really an emergency, then don't treat them. Send them to the urgent care or to their primary doctor the next day.
Wow. So yeah, money got into medicine and it became a
Big
commoditization.
time.
And if you didn't
So,
do what
so,
they told
so
you to do, you were dispendable, it seems.
yeah, you were like, whoa, that wasn't what I was thinking. So, I guess who would get that kind of treatment?
Young.
Don't say anything. It's who you think. So anyway,
Oh,
so
yeah.
so it was just like anyway. So we started to build this clinic. When I say we, I mean my wife and I, and we aimed for the lowest common denominator. Those people who didn't even qualify for Medicaid. This was before Obamacare.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't qualify for Medicaid. They had nothing. But the way the American healthcare system at that time is different now. It's way better now. But at that time, if a person is sick but doesn't have Medicare, which meant that they were elderly, over 65,
Mhm.
or they were a child, that means they had Medicaid, or they had kidney failure, which was a special cutout that also got Medicaid and Medicare, actually. Um, if you fell between the gaps somewhere, then you'd go to the emergency room, and they would say, "Oh, you can just go to the emergency room." Imagine people coming to the emergency room to get their blood pressure medicines, to get their diabetes medicines, to get care for chronic illnesses.
That are
That
not emergent. They're not emergent.
that's no place. What they need is an education. So we targeted those people, and the county of San Bernardino and other counties had a program where they would pay about a third of what it actually cost to deliver that care, and we jumped on it.
Wow. My mom says, I remember as a child, you talked about becoming a missionary doctor, and this is it. Like, this is, you're fulfilling.
I don't remember saying anything like
Yeah, okay.
that. I just wanted to be a good person. But
Mm,
anyway, so that program evolved when Obamacare came in, and all those patients, all 2,000 of my patients, got health care in one day. I mean,
wow.
Obamacare was signed, and those guys was
And
all of a sudden
you got into that field right
before,
before.
before, because it was a need. So if there's any lesson to be learned, it is do something you would do for free. Do
Mm,
something you would do for free. So for a while there, what was happening was we were taking care of these people, but weren't being paid enough to actually pay our rent, pay our staff, and pay ourselves. So we had to work our other jobs. So we worked our other jobs and put the money into the clinic, funded the clinic, did that for years. And then Obamacare came, so-called Obamacare,
yeah.
whatever. So
Affordable Care Act.
Affordable Care Act. And we thought we were rich, actually. But what actually happened though is as soon as those guys got insurance, all the other doctors opened up. And
Mm,
so they began to assign patients based on their zip codes.
uh,
So we got our zip code, but a lot of other patients. We had I don't know, our catchment area was 100 miles, something like that. I mean,
mm,
we had a broad area of patients who would come to us. All they had in common was that they didn't have insurance.
mm, wow.
Yeah.
So what I'm hearing is you had some challenges when you were in emergency medicine where money got heavily involved, and you're like, you know what, it's time to
Mhm.
transition.
You could see that you were interchangeable in a way that was not secure for you.
Yeah, not secured
See it.
commodities. So you decided to build your own business, and you built it with the idea of helping those who may not be able to even pay you back as much as others.
They couldn't pay us zilch, nothing.
Right. Right,
But the
and
company was,
even when you get the government assistance via Affordable Care Act, Medicare, etcetera, then competition comes in. So
yes.
even when you were just getting about to get rich or more rich, competition comes in. So it was like it sounds like to me the challenges that you face is that business gets in the way of medicine.
Well, it's a human situation. And so you just have to adjust, which we did. And so here's the thing. Then we had to become a desirable provider so that the person who was 50 miles away would still want to come to us. They'd be like, no, I'm not going to those doctors out there. So, so then we had to change what became our secret weapon. Our secret weapon was providing a kind of care that was so appealing that they would fight the insurance company. I have patients that would tell the insurance, no,
Mm.
I will change my insurance before I will leave this doctor. And so that's what we're working. What we're really working on now is segmenting our populations. We have a program for hypertensive patients, programs, ways of reaching out to them. Diabetics, where our plan is educational stuff that will teach people about cooking, where to get good food in the neighborhood. Um, um, we started a pediatric program, just absolutely amazing, which it just
Mm.
blew up. It was like, there's this joke that one of the cartoonists wrote about two mosquitoes, and one landed on a man's arm, and he stuck his needle in, and he blew up like a big old balloon. And the other one says, pull out, you've hit an artery.
You've hit an artery, and like,
It's a
and
joke
who
that
knew it would be pediatrics would be that blood flow? Who knew?
pediatrics was the artery. What?
Who knew?
And but it's actually. Do you know why we started? Because we knew we had. So not only do we have a primary care clinic, we have an urgent care that runs very close, right beside it. It's a mirror image, separated by offices and stuff. We saw the pediatric cases coming into the urgent care. They couldn't get into
Mm.
who they're supposed to see. We knew there was a problem.
That that you
You
could
would not
solve.
believe you would not believe who the pediatrician is.
I
Stuff.
bet you it's
Audrey
your
Reed.
cousin, Audrey Reed. Shout
It's
out.
Audrey
Listen,
Reed.
just talking about my family. I talked about my family this week about how I have about 8 we have about 8 physicians in our family.
At
And I
least.
I grew up I grew up seeing you guys. It's something to see you, Audrey, and it's not just
Uh,
even medicine, it's law with your sister Carolyn, and I saw so
Leandra.
much. Leandra, shout out Supreme Court, California Justice. I see
Yeah.
these things, and it's amazing to see in one family, how we can, like, empower a community, because that's what it sounds like you're basically doing. You're doing empowerment. So lastly, okay, go ahead. What do you wanna say?
Lastly, my
Okay.
legacy.
What's your favorite part of your career?
Now, now, you would not believe what I enjoy more than anything else is to begin to invest in the life planning of the people who work for me, the medical assistants and LVNs. Our clinic is a significant educational facility where we partner with nurse practitioner schools and have their students come in to get their clinical experience. And we hope to become better and better at a place. Not only are we supplying health care, but we're supplying healthcare providers. Not only that, we would like to see our entry level workers, the receptionists, the medical assistants, back office, front office, um, people who are doing other tasks within the clinic. There's a lot of communication with patients, people who are referral specialists, for instance. We have one person who basically her job is to segment our population into groups like diabetics for a diabetic program, hypertension. She's basically looking at the codes and pulling those people and put them in a class of patients to get special treatment. We have their emails. We can reach out to them. And, what you're doing in terms of online outreach is the sort of thing that I think is the future. We're going to be able to talk to 10, 20 people at a time and give them the education opportunity that cannot happen in a doctor's visit. The doctor wants you out of there. It's like one of my patients told me. I was like, why did you come to us? He said, my last doctor told me that she had 13 minutes and then she had to go.
Yeah, she actually verbalized it, but that's the truth.
Yeah, I got
She didn't
13 minutes.
verbalize it, but that's the truth.
So there's you can't get a master's with 13 minutes of time.
And diabetes, as you said, is
Yes.
a master's.
It's the equivalent. The knowledge that you need is like a master's degree. Um, how are you going to get that? We have to come up with the solutions. And so what's exciting? We're teaching young healthcare providers,
Nice.
and we're teaching those who are entry level. I tell them you can enter this clinic stupid and end up a rock star. We have had nurses and LVNs who came in as entry level. Now they're in the LVN business. Now they're in the RN business. I have my scribe, the person who writes so that I can actually look my patient in the eye and talk to them. She writes. So whenever I'm seeing a patient, there's somebody standing right beside me just entering the whole interaction. She is a 3.8 GPA public health student at Cal State San Bernardino. And she's going into medicine.
Wow. You're training her.
That's my scribe.
Hmm.
I am so excited to now be pouring ideas and my secret weapons into these people and can't wait to see what will come out of that.
You're doing it now,
All at,
Uncle Sam. You're doing
all
it
at the
right
same
now.
time giving healthcare. It's pretty amazing. So I'm
Yeah,
excited. I'm pumped.
yeah, yeah. You're doing like this video in and of itself, and then that's the last thing. I encourage all undergrad students to become scribes. That's another thing. It really is a great,
Oh my God,
great um
that's a
tool.
magic weapon. That's just yeah, yeah.
Great tool. So, and what you did today, this you gave a lot of like practical information. I don't know if anybody out there they're a little shy out there. They're not asking questions, and that's okay. But you really gave a lot of practical tools to really assist young people, older people on how to navigate this business. And so I really really appreciate you taking the time. Let me look and see if there's any questions out there. I don't want to rush through, but
Come on,
let's
this is Fourth of July weekend. Who's gonna be like listening to this? But but
yeah.
but let me tell you something. Let me just say one last thing.
Mhm.
It really takes a long time to learn all that you can as a human being to be successful. If you have to learn it all by yourself without a guide, it's not going to happen. What I would say to the young people is you need to actually know who you are and what you're going to do. That's just the beginning. It's a decision. It doesn't matter how smart or dumb you are. I was blessed to. You see these books behind me, by the way? This is my father's library. I couldn't throw them away when he died. Couldn't. They packed up my mom's garage. I had to get movers to come and take, and I wouldn't throw them away. Who reads? I have 700 books in my Audible. These are not my books. I was raised in a family of book
Of
readers.
readers. Of readers.
You need to know who you are. In the age of Google, a question like that, you can start with that. Okay? You don't need somebody to tell you what that actually means. Who are you? Who are you? What is your mission? What are you going to do? It's like I tell my medical assistants, who are you? What are you going to do? That's what you need to know. Decide, commit. As a matter of fact, I make them say, we meet every morning at 8 o'clock. We call it a huddle. We talk. I make them say what they're going to do. Commit to it. Say it so that somebody will hear you and will challenge you. Hey, what about this nursing
Hold
program
you,
you said?
yeah, hold you accountable. Hold
Yes.
you accountable. Yep.
Say who you are. Say what you're going to do. I thought I was a neurosurgeon. Turns out I was an emergency doctor. But I started down that road and found my calling. That's my story.
Love the story. Love the story. Love the story. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. That's listen, that's it, guys. I am the phenomenal STEMist, and so is he. Thanks,
I,
Dr.
I, I just love what you're doing. I remember I was telling you that, after you got your PhD, okay, now you can be a doctor,
Yeah, I know.
but you
I
don't
always
have
remember it.
to. No, but I was wrong. It's a different time. What you're doing, mm,
Uncle Sam, you
may
would
God,
always
may
say, "When
God
you going to
continue to
medical
bless
school?"
you.
Every time we see it, "When you going to medical school? Where you going?" You always wanted to be a doctor. You always wanted to be a physician. But
Yeah,
but but like you said, I knew who I was, and you didn't
yeah,
put on any pressure on me. It was just something that you always saw in my mind. You as a child, you saw me as one because of my inquisitive nature and how smart I was. But
yeah.
I knew who I was. I knew who I was, and no matter how many physicians in the family were there, I knew who I was, and I appreciate physicians, and I train physicians, and I have students who are watching that want to become physicians, and I will create more Wilsons through what I'm supposed to do.
You will
Yeah,
create 1,000 physicians, is what you're
yeah,
going to do.
that's right.
10,000, 100,000.
That's right.
I'm so
That's
proud of
right.
you. Yeah,
That's right. All
you
right,
rock.
guys.
All right.
Thanks so much. Stay on with me before